Last time around, we just got back from burgling a museum that was being built and robbing an architectural site. Not architectural, archaeological. They're totally different subjects. Come on, think about these things, Ran. But yeah, so that's the plan here. We're gonna run the shadows a little. So what the focus is in fact going to be is talking to the rest of our party, because it's between runs that you actually get to find out more about them. So this is going to be a fair amount of reading. We'll see how well I do on the voices. We slept last time. We collected the payment for our job, so let's chat with Duncan. Oh, okay. Apparently, Duncan's got nothing to say to us. Is he? It's definitely the one we did last time, right? You haven't accepted the job offer I sent you. Is there a problem? No problem. Just haven't gotten around to reading it yet. Oh, well, in that case, please read it soon. I really think this job's a good idea, and it's not going to have any noticeable impact. Anyway, you're back. What can I do for you? Nice avatar. It's a good look on you. Isn't it? I've spent months customizing this avatar. She feels more real to me than my own skin. You feel really happy and you feel really at home in the Matrix, don't you? You look happy in there. I suppose that I am. It's a comfort thing. As long as I'm jacked in, I can be whoever I want to be. Whatever I want to be. Out there in meat space, I usually feel uncomfortable in my own skin. The avatar offers you a lopsided smile. I'd probably just live in here if I could. I've heard about deckers who've tried it. Never turned out well. Dehydration's a bad way to go. I know, and of course I was only joking, but truth be told, I do spend most of my time out there wishing that I were back in here. You're a decker. You must know what I'm talking about. The freedom of it. It's hard to live in a cage of meat when you know how sweet it feels to leave your body behind. Any thoughts about the last run? Nope. Sorry, jacking into the octopus is how I relax after a long day of work. Some people go to sports bars or strip clubs. I do this. As a rule, I don't spoil my leisure time with shop talk. But we're already talking shop, aren't we? There's a difference between the job and our lives. It's after hours. I don't want to talk about work, so if you wouldn't mind changing the subject. Alright, well then I gotta go, Izzy. Okay. Gilbert. Gilbert looks up from her hot plate at the sound of your approach. A smile creases her face. She raises her eyebrows and gestures at the cabin around you. You know, the Kraken's been really shaping up over the past few days. With all the work we've been putting into her, she's starting to feel like a real home. Anyway, enough about the boat. Ready for your next lesson, or did you just want to chat? Yeah, I'm ready for my... so, any thoughts about that last run? That was awesome! Think about it. We broke into some rich jerk's manor house, stole his artifacts, so they could go to a museum, though technically they were also opening a museum, you know. And we fought mummies. If that's not the plot of a Trid blockbuster, I don't know what is. I'm not sure what I think about that mummy's trinket. I've never had a dead person owe me a favor before. Not even sure how that works. Be careful when you use it. As long as he does what we tell him to, that's pretty awesome. But if Trid taught me anything, it's that mummies are always waiting for an excuse to run around cursing everybody. So what do you want to chat about? I'm ready for my next lesson. Yeah? That's good. I was hoping you'd want to keep going with this. It's good for you, and I'm kind of enjoying it too. Gilbert runs a hand through the knotted ropes of her hair, a contemplative look on her face. A moment later, she turns her attention back to you. Alright, this is going to be another long story, so I'm thinking we should take it in chunks. If you've got any questions, you can ask them along the way. If you need to take a break, we can come back to it. Sound good? Sure, sounds good. Good, so last time I told you about the event that brought an end to my illustrious career as a subcontractor. This time, I'm going to tell you about a run that I went on with my regular team. Nightjar's team, you mean? No, this is long before I hooked up with them. Iz was just learning to deck back then. She was good for her age, but she wasn't ready for prime time. It'd be another couple of years before I'd meet Nightjar or Auntie Chang. You don't know anyone from the group that I'm talking about. They're all gone now anyway. Wait, you lost 3 other teams before you hooked up with me? Yeah, I did. Thanks for rubbing it in. Sorry. Don't worry, Pat, I'm fine. When you run the shadows, losing people is an occupational hazard. She offers you a lopsided smile. As Shadowrunners, we're disposable assets. It shouldn't come as a surprise when we get used up and tossed away. It was the same way in the Barrens. Here today, gone tomorrow. Yeah, you know how it is. People die and it's sad, but there's no sense moping about it. Yeah. Tell me about the team you were running with. Sure. She extends a hand so she can count off her teammates on her fingers. Madness scurries down her sleeve and perches on her forearm. Our muscle was a Hawaiian Jew with a poor impulse control. Big round guy with lumberjack arms and ringlets in his hair. Called himself Honu. Guess he loved turtles? I don't know. Street names are weird. We had a tech specialist, Egret. She was tall, gawky, dyed her hair bone white, had a drone named Arlo that followed her around like a lost puppy. She was kind of a jack of all trades, but she could get the job done. Fun at parties too. Our de facto team leader was a guy named Tsui. He was a wiry troll, if you can imagine that. Probably about 2% body fat, all skin and bones, walked with a hunch to make himself look smaller. He was a shaman, followed rat like me. Can't be that many troll rat shamans out there. Not that I met, but Tsui seemed like a really good guy. We got along fine. I actually really liked everyone on the team. They were a lot of fun to run with. How'd you meet him? Through mutual friends. We all lived together before we decided to start running as a team. There was this floating squatters commune out in Hung Hom Bay. It's probably still out there. Actually, I haven't been back in a long time, but I spent a few years living on the thing, and the rest of the team lived there with me. Squatters commune? Yep, we called it the sinking ship. It was like an enormous raft, all bolted together from old shipping containers. It wasn't the most comfortable place I've ever lived, but the price was right and the company was good. Think you got a grasp on the team dynamic. Keep going. Alright, moving on. So one day, Tsui brought us a job. He met a client in a Victoria Harbour bar, a rich Eastern Tiger exec. He wanted us to steal something for him. A shiny object? I know, it's stupid, right? But that was how the Johnson described it to us. The shiny object. That was what he wanted us to get. He never gave it any other name. Really? A rat shaman hired to steal a shiny object? Yeah, you can see how the gig would be hard for us to resist. Anyway, the client tells us what to look for. He described it as a chunk of red jade about the size and shape of an ostrich egg, with a mirror-polished surface and gold wire inlays. He said it had paper charms hanging off it. Food talismans, tower stories, sorcery stuff. We weren't supposed to touch those. The client also told us about the shiny object's then owner, an old hedge mage turned entrepreneur named Kong Xian. Hedge wizard? Yeah, he had the whole wise old sage thing going on. He had the robes, little hat, the kind smile. Oh, and the piece de resistance, a long wispy beard. He was mean as a snake though, had a rep to prove it. Intel said that an old man Xiang was keeping the shiny object in one of his warehouses. He had a bunch of them. He built himself a nice little empire selling magical paraphernalia through puppet vendors in the Yaomate night market. Supposedly, a good fifth of the stores in that place were on Xion's payroll. Okay. What kind of magical paraphernalia are we talking about? Oh, you know, pickled reagents in mason jars, emetic scrolls and charms, relics looted from Buddhist temples, crates of old Balinese rangda masks, and fist-sized stones from a great dragon's kidney. Xian sold it all. How he got his hands on it in the first place is anyone's guess. I get the picture. Good, thought you might. We cased the warehouse for a couple of nights before the run. We're pretty sure that Xion was keeping our payday in the vault area at the very back of the building. But the old man had enough tribe protection, we'd have to be sneaky to get there. Tsui was the one who came up with the plan. We'd split up outside, enter the warehouse in two teams. Team A created a diversion. Team B had hit the vault while security was looking the other way. We grab our payday, regroup, and get the hell out of there. Seems pretty straightforward. It's probably what I would have done in your place. Yeah, it wasn't a bad plan. It went surprisingly well, at least to a point. Team A, Honu and Egret, circled around to the loading dock just like we planned. Tsui and I waited by the service entrance. Didn't have to wait long. A couple of minutes in, we heard this ungodly crash, then another, and another. Turns out, Egret had rigged into Xion's network of automated forklifts. She had 6 of them running amok in the loading dock, chasing down workers and crushing themselves into anything marked fragile. Next time we're on a run with a loading dock, remind me about that forklift trick. It's awesome, right? Egret really outdid herself. I wish I could have been there to see it. Aggressive distraction did most of what it was supposed to. Tsui and I watched most of the Triad guys at the surface entrance abandon their posts and went hauling off towards the loading dock. A couple of guys with baseball bats stayed back, but we handled them easily enough. We slipped inside and made a beeline for the back of the warehouse, where the shiny object was supposed to be. So, let me guess, something went wrong? No, actually it was there, just like we thought it'd be. Door was open and everything. The shiny object was sitting there in a teak cradle, gleaming with reflected light. Just like the client had said, it had a ring of Taos talismans hanging off it like a grass skirt, paper all crinkled with age. Didn't waste any time. I reached in and grabbed the thing. It felt strange through my gloves. The jade sort of pulsed as if it had a heartbeat. That sounds ominous. Yeah, tell me about it. I wanted to drop the thing, but it was our payday, so I slipped it into my satchel instead. Couldn't get the flap closed quickly enough. Package being secure, Tsui and I went to hightail it out of there, and that's when things went shit. Did the shiny object do something unpredictable? No, not the shiny object. Old man Xian. He was standing there right in front of us, larger than life. I'm guessing that when he'd heard the commotion in the loading dock, he'd come running, well, waddling, to make sure his treasure was safe. As it turns out, it wasn't, because I'd already stolen the thing. He looked displeased. So, what did you do? What do you think we did? He had our backs to the wall. We lit the old bastard up. It was pretty epic, truth be told. Spirits were summoned, spells were discharged, the vault door sealed behind Xion like something out of a movie. At one point, Old Man leapt onto Tsui's back and tried to bite his ear off. I won't bore you with the play-by-play of how the fight went down. In the end, we crushed him. Unfortunately, the fighting had caused some collateral damage. At some point during our showdown with Xion, the control panel for the vault door must have eaten an arc of lightning or a blast of a powerball. It was toast, all black and melted, and neither of us could fix it. So you were trapped in the vault. Yeah, that's about the size of it, and it was only a matter of time before the old man's remaining security guards found us there. There was still one way out, a ventilation duct up behind the rafters, but it was too full for Tsui to fit through. He was a troll after all. I had the shiny object, but if I left Tsui there and security got to him, well, you do the math. So here's a conundrum. Got our payday in my satchel, team split. It's inevitable that more Triad 49ers are going to find us, but we don't know when or how many. Ygritte and Honu are holding their own in the loading dock, for now. I can stay with Tsui to help fight off the inevitable wave of Triad 49ers, but we'll be badly outmatched, like badly. The odds of survival won't look good for either of us. If Ygritte weren't pinned down in the loading dock, she could probably get the vault door open, but in order to get to her, I'd have to leave Tsui alone in the vault. If Xian's reinforcements find Tsui before I get back with Ygritte, well, she uses her thumb to draw a line across her neck. That's the scenario, Ranneko. Not a lot to work with. Now tell me, what should I do? Well, I'd take the gamble and go for Ygritte. That's the plan with the best chance of success. Could have done that, I guess. Or it might have worked. Of course, could have gotten Tsui gunned down in the vault too, but in retrospect, it wouldn't have been a huge loss. Anyway, that wasn't what I did. I saw what I thought could be a way to save the day, so I went ahead and took it. I fished the shiny object out of my bag, still remembered how the Taos talismans that ringed it crinkled in my hands. I remember shrugging, saying to hell with it, and put the thing in Tsui's bare hands and told him to go nuts. It was almost like Tsui had been waiting for me to pass him the thing. He seemed eager to take it. He hugged that chunk of rock to his chest like a newborn baby. Color swam in the stone and something changed in his eyes. Then old man Xian's 49ers breached the door and Tsui unleashed hell. She pauses, frowning, stops scratching folly and uses the hand to rub her eyes. Finally she turns back to us. Our look pinches her features. What went down in that room? Well, I've only seen that kind of carnage a couple of times in my life, and I've been running the shadows for years. Those Triad men were torn to scraps by the end of it. Don't think I'll ever forget the sounds they made. I spent most of the fight huddled up in the corner for my own safety. What Tsui let loose from the stone didn't seem terribly interested in discriminating between friend and foe. What do you mean by that? Did he summon hostile spirits or something? Something like that. Truth be told, I don't know what they were. Like I said, I was hiding. But he could not have done it without the shiny object. Not in a million years. Whatever they were, the rock brought them here. So what did you do? We waited for things to calm down in the vault and for some things to go slithering away. I think that Tsui had some limited control over them, which is why they didn't eat us. After they were gone, Tsui gave me the shiny object. I put it in my satchel and we bailed. We collected the others on the way out. They were blissfully ignorant of what had happened on the other side of the warehouse, and I didn't see a reason to change it. We hightailed it back to the docks and caught the first boat back to the sinking ship. Mission accomplished. Goblet looks away again, stares off into space. From what I'm told, people still avoid Sion's warehouse like the plague. It's supposed to be haunted even to this day. People who set foot in the building keep turning up dead. I'm pretty sure I'm one of the only living people who knows why. Anyway, that's it. Lesson's over. If you've got any questions, go ahead. Can you tell me more about the sinking ship? Yeah, sure. Story's over, so we can get into it. I moved on to the sinking ship when I was a kid, when I was maybe 12, 13. In the beginning, it was just me and a couple of rat shaman friends, Cadmus and Malvina. They were older, but always cool to me. Did your friends build the raft? No way. Cadmus probably could have, but he didn't. He and Malvina appropriated it from the former owners. There was a team of Shadowrunners that had lived on the thing before us, but they bid it on a job. Cad and Mal heard the knock of opportunity, and they claimed the raft for rat in the record time. Taking over the sinking ship wasn't an easy job, mind you. The previous owners had installed traps and automated defenses all over the raft. Cad had his hands full with those for a month. What kind of traps are we talking about? Yeah, usual stuff. Explosives, pod turrets, that kind of thing. Cad and his sister Yasmin took care of most of it without too much trouble. Biggest problems were the Scotland charges. The runners had built the raft had installed these explosives all along the perimeter that had ripped the bottom out of the thing if it were ever seized by the police. Those explosives were tricky to deal with. Cat was able to disarm them, but he had to leave them where they were. It was always just slightly uncomfortable knowing they were sleeping on top of a couple 100 pounds of dominant explosives. Yeah, that would disrupt your sleep a little. Hey, like I said, it was free. There weren't really any rules to follow, which suited me fine. Malvina was the sort of leader of our little nest, but we never really listened to her. She was always trying to play the mum card, instill a sense of responsibility into us. It was cute. She did have a propensity for getting things done, though. I'd have to give her that. Anyway, after a few months, other people started showing up. Squatters, homeless people, Shadowrunners, other crazies. As long as they stayed cool with us, we were cool to them. Eventually it became a community. Imagine that. So, you think you wound up squatting on the Kraken because of your time on the sinking ships? I don't know, maybe. Never had thought about it before, but yeah, maybe. Guess I'm a water rat now. Was there a point to this story, Goblet? I'm trying to find a moral here. Well, there was when I started telling it. I thought it was going to tell you to be comfortable with breaking the rules. Don't think you can say that now. Not feeling it anymore. Why not? At least your team made it out of this run alive. Didn't see it that way for long, huh? But let's leave that for another time, eh? I don't want to get into it just now. Alright, I'll take a break and come back to it. Well, so, was there anything else you wanted to talk about? Nah. Thanks, alright. Yeah. Hey, Ranneko, I'm sorry this lesson wound up being a little unfocused near the end. I'm not really sure what came over me. Happens to the best of us. Well, I still feel bad about it, so I'll make you a deal. The next lesson will definitely be on point, and I'll tell you what it's about up front. No more question and answer sessions. Fine by me, Goblet. Capture next time. Next time. Alright, down we go. I really like the various companion conversations, just because we get to learn more about our companions, but also because then we get side quests from them as well. So we need to do Izzy's because she's starting to bug us about it. Plus it'll make it better. The air in Rakta's shop is ripe with the stench of old metalworking fluids. He turns to face you, a burning cigarette clenched between his teeth. Sorry about the smell. It's a long past time to purge the coolant sump. He frowns. If I had access to the proper equipment, it would not be a problem. I could clean the fluid and reuse it. But alas, haulage and treatment chambers are rather hard to come by even in places like Haoi. Anyway, my friend, you didn't come here to discuss the ins and outs of shop maintenance, I'm sure. So, what does bring you here? Any thoughts about that last run? An interesting diversion. The mummies that we encountered were fascinating. Dead flesh, reanimated by the controlling will of an astral being bound within. Of course, the notion that these creatures are genuine reincarnations of long-dead humans is ludicrous. There's nothing innately magical about human consciousness. The soul is an antiquated concept rooted in wishful thinking. Thankfully, your deal has earned us the means to summon one of these entities. I should like to study it. Dissection would be best, but given the circumstances, I suppose that external observation will do. Good work all the same. My notes will be the richer for it. Now, what would you have of me? Well, I've been thinking about the last time we talked. Mind if I ask you a few more questions? Be my guest, I have no secrets to keep. About the drone self-repair system you invented, how did it work? There were 3 distinct elements to my approach. When these elements were all working in concert, prototypes that utilized the process displayed remarkable self-repair capabilities. This may be a lengthy explanation. I can skim over it for you if you please, or I can break it down for you if you're genuinely interested. Give me a long version, I want to know how it works. Very well, the long version it is. The first element of my process was an outer skin that the drone could be wrapped in, a refinement of older biomimetic self-healing materials, modeled to emulate the self-repair capabilities of living beings. Imagine a polymer composite interlaced with microtubules, capillaries if you will. These vessels are capable of delivering bonding agents to the site of a wound as it occurs, thus healing it. I've heard of some materials that operate on similar principles. They've been around for decades, haven't they? Yes, though they've remained uncommon until recently. As I said, my material was a refinement on those earlier designs. It was also only the first part of the system. The synergy between the 3 is what made the project work. The second element involved the underlying structure of the drone's architecture, the servos, gears, circuits, etc. Utilizing self-assembling materials and redundant systems, I created a system by which damaged components could be fabricated and replaced by the drone itself without any need for human interference. Okay, so you got self-healing skin and self-replacing underlying structure. What was the third part? Yes, well, very well. The long version is, our story begins billions of years ago with the creation of the universe. And then, nothing exploded. Finally, the system had a magical component. The corner of his mouth tips downwards. I must confess a certain degree of ignorance when it comes to this portion of the project. I understand some of the theory behind what was done, but the specifics are beyond me. I'm surprised. I thought this was your process through and through. Oh, it is. I recognize the need for a magical component, but I feel no shame in admitting I cannot understand the specifics. I have a mind for figures and physics in the natural world. Magic works according to a different set of principles altogether. Truth be told, it makes my head hurt. Okay, so you need this third component. You said it was your idea. What was it, and what did it do? In layman's terms, a magical element was necessary to render the system self-perpetuating. Obviously, no purely mechanical system can repair itself indefinitely. The synthetic skin becomes more brittle with every wound that it heals, and the automated assembly components will eventually run out of materials to work with. As a rule, fighting against entropy is a losing proposition. But with magic we can rewrite the rules, weaken the grasp of those entropic forces to the point that they are rendered negligible. Think of magic as the lubricant that keeps the gears turning. I wish it weren't necessary, but I'm also a realist, and I must confess that it is required for the system to work. And this package of systems is what your former colleague stole from you, and you need to get back. Yes, given enough time and resources, I may be able to recreate the first 2 components of my system, but the magical component is, and will forever be, completely beyond me. This is why it's so important that we recover my research and the prototype that was stolen, and we will recover them. Of that I have no doubt. What do you think a post-human future would mean? Freedom. He takes a long drag on his cigarette, sucking the smoke deep into his lungs. When he speaks, it erupts from his mouth in a plume. The ultimate freedom to direct our own progress, to steer ourselves as a people in whatever direction we wish. Consider, my friend, every aspect of Koschei was designed and tailor-made for a purpose, dreamed up and built by a singular guiding intellect. Alright, I get it, you made your own drone. I see no shame in taking pride in my work. Koschei steps forward, the tip of its leg digging into the metal grate that lines the shop floor. I believe the fruits of my labor speak for themselves. Now getting back on track, I think of the circumstances surrounding your own birth, the building blocks that shaped you into the living being you are. Your mother and father exchanged fluids, sloppily no doubt, and with all the mindless abandon that such biological imperatives entail. That may be the ugliest description of sex I have ever heard. Ugly, perhaps, but accurate. Sexual intercourse is an inarticulate process, a messy delivery mechanism for genetic material spurred on by hormones and base urges. Any attempt to guide the process on a societal level gets branded eugenics and decried as monstrous for obvious reasons. But I digress. The point I was making was that the forces that shaped you and me and anyone else you care to mention were ultimately mindless ones. Blind, manipulative biological urges that led a sperm and an egg to collide. Add in a roll of the dice and a dash of Mendelian genetics, and here you are. The natural processes of evolution and sexual selection guide the development of our species through trial and error. Throw in a few billion darts at the wall and see what sticks. In the future that I foresee, this process will be reined in, guided by our own controlling intellects. To co-opt the antiquated phrase, the myth of intelligent design will become a reality. We will be our own gods, reshaping ourselves as we see fit. Let me get this straight. You're a scientist, possibly mad, who's literally telling me he wants to play God. How cliched is that? Look around you, Ranneko. Everything about the world that we inhabit bears a stamp of metahuman tampering, from the food that we eat, to the homes we live in, to the air we breathe. Playing God is a meaningless term. We've been reshaping our environment since time immemorial. I'm advocating a further refinement to the process. Step back for a moment and imagine a future in which we are fully integrated with machines. Really imagine it. There will be no niche we cannot fill. We can guide our own evolution, tailor ourselves to whatever environment we see fit. We will no longer be slaves to the selective processes that have dictated our development since time immemorial. Okay. So essentially you're saying you want all of us to be what? Robots? No, I suspect there will always be some biological component to metahuman life, a degree of randomness, the possibility of mutation. These are good things. Even if we could shed them entirely, I suspect we shouldn't. What I desire is a truer fusion of man and machine. His eyes flit to Crochet. The drone takes a step forward in response. Modern cybernetic systems tend to be iterations on the biological components that they replace. There are exceptions, of course. There is no analog for the data jack in nature, but on the whole, our imagination has been depressingly limited in this regard. In the future that I foresee, we will abandon this restrictive mentality and open our eyes to newer, more exciting possibilities. Bodies reshaped to thrive in the deep ocean and the depths of space. Bodies inspired by nature or the human imagination, or both. Bodies that can be used and shed and used again, as inhabited as their wearers see fit. The timely realization of such a future is what drives me forward. It's the cause to which I have devoted my life, and thankfully it is inevitable, assuming, of course, we do not destroy ourselves first. There's a hard limit to the fusion of man and machine. Doesn't your vision of the future require us to get past that? You're speaking of the essence limit, and the problems associated with essence loss. He releases a plume of smoke from the corner of his mouth. Yes, of course it will be a problem. But as with all problems, a workaround will present itself. Of this I am certain. So, for reference, essence loss, every metahuman has a certain amount of essence. Anytime you replace human bits or metahuman bits with non-metahuman bits, you lose essence, and there is basically no way to get it back. It's possible to potentially regrow it if you, regain it if you, remove the cybernetic or BioWare equivalent. Then you maybe replace it with a cloned part of yourself, but it's basically gone for good. And losing essence also drops your magic, so it is a pretty big problem. And if you hit 0 essence, your soul leaves your body and you die, which is why this is a fairly important philosophical point in the Shadowrun universe. And it's also implied, but not enforced, that people with almost no essence left, so Street Samurai will often basically have 0.0 something essence left at the start of the game. They're meant to be... It's implied that a lot of them are fairly detached from humanity. A little bit more psychotic, a little bit less empathetic. And yeah, that's the thing. So that is definitely a major concern of transhumanism in this. It is a game balancing thing that also serves as a story point. Yes, exactly. What workaround? Essence loss will always be a problem. To deny that would be wishful thinking. Always is a dangerous word, my friend. I would encourage you to broaden your thinking. I am confident that you will reach the same conclusion on your own. For the time being, let us leave the matter at that. So in this post-human future you're trying to bring about, what role would a drone like Koschei play? A similar one to the role that he plays now, I imagine. He was designed for a purpose, after all. That said, I can see the techniques that went into his design and fabrication having much broader ranged applications. You're pretty attached to him. You've even assigned a gender. You keep calling it him. Of course, Koschei is very close to me. As if on cue, the drone scuttles forward, hardened tips of its claws screeching across the metal floor of the shop. It comes up short, just in front of you, a strange mechanical chitter rising deep from within its chassis. You might accuse me of anthropomorphizing my little companion, assigning human characteristics to him where there are in fact none. Truth be told, there is much more to Koschei than meets the eye, but that is a different conversation, one best suited to be held for another time. Why not talk about it now? Because I have work to do, and I'm sure you can find better uses for your time than listening to me prattle on. And with that, I'm afraid I must ask you to show yourself out. We can continue our talk at a later date. Like, after you do a singles run or two. Okay. So now, one last conversation in the boat. So, how you going, Gaichu? The cabin is in a far better state than it was previously. The heat's been adjusted down, the ventilation has been restored, the box of junk and parts have been stacked and neatly arranged, and Gaichu's small amount of personal gear is tucked away in a corner. There's a small mat in the corner of the cabin that looks like it doubles as both a rug and a sleeping pad. Gaichu is seated in the lotus position, eyes closed, his fingertips on a braille reader that's plugged into his PDA. The device fills the room with a soft clicking from the pin combinations. As you approach, he lifts his hand from the reader's surface. Hello again, Ranneko. Is there something I can assist you with? Looks like you've carved out a nice little spot here. If you say so. I doubt it would be suitable for the others, but I do not require much by way of space, and I have few possessions. As long as I have a quiet area in which I can sit and relax, I am happy. Now, what is it you wanted to discuss? Any thoughts about the last run? I'm not certain what insight I could grant you. I was not present for that mission, so my understanding of it is purely second-hand. What were you reading? Gaichu draws himself up, folding his palms in lap. With one toe he pushes the braille reader away. It is called Hagakure, Hidden Leaves, written by Yamamoto Tsunotomo as a treatise on what it means to be a samurai and how one should best serve one's lord. It is required reading for Red Samurai, unsurprisingly. Wasn't he forbidden from killing himself when his lord died? Gaichu blinks, obviously surprised. A wide grin spreads across his face. You know of him, then? Yes, that is Tsunotomo. He was eager to die and show his loyalty, but Lord Mitsushige had always found that custom to be wasteful. The author's essential thesis: when there is a question of life or death, always choose death, throw oneself into the fray with no resignations, and act on instinct alone. My current state of affairs speaks the truth of this more robustly than any lesson in a dojo. What's the rest of the book about? Gaichu ticks off the points by unfurling successive fingers. It's partly a manual for proper behavior towards one's lord, partly a rumination on the mindset required to be victorious in combat, and partly a collection of stories. Tsunomono believed that to truly embody the virtues of a samurai, adherents should be mindful of their path at all times, and never stop training. Always question how one's actions reflect on their lord. Above all, be prepared to do your duty instinctively at any time, no matter what the cost. If I recall correctly, he also was a bureaucrat who never fought anyone. Gaichu's lips curl into a slight scowl, but he nods in agreement. That is true. Tsunotomo never fought anyone, and some have criticized him for trying to speak of being a warrior without ever lifting a sword. But I believe he has a great many things of value to say. He cared a great deal about the deeper meaning of being a samurai. If lived experience is the only part of the truth, then all philosophers are fools. Well, you know, I tend to agree with that, actually. If that is your attitude, then I fear there is precious little I can do to change your mind on the subject. What does he say about a masterless samurai like you? 7 times down, 8 times up. More specifically, if a samurai has not been a ronin at least 7 times, he has not truly lived as a samurai. Those were different times, however. It was common for a samurai to fall out of favor with their lord and be turned loose to wander. For company men like myself, the choice is serve or die. Is there anything else you would like to discuss? I'd like to know more about what it's like to be a ghoul. Preparing for the eventuality of killing me and collecting the bounty? Make sure you leave my face intact. I would prefer to be a well-deserved trophy. Don't worry, I'll have it stuffed and mounted on my wall. Gachu bares his teeth in a rictus grin. You can hear a faint chuckle rumble in the back of his throat. Now that would be an illustrious ending to my career. A severed head decorating a leaking wreck of a boat, home to two extremely private individuals who'll never show me off. Couldn't you sell it to sort of a museum or something? If you wish to know about what it's like to be me, ask away. I see no reason to conceal the details of my condition. So, what's the deal with your teeth? What deal are you referring to? Did you file them down to points? No, they're actually new teeth created by the infection. I suppose it's a natural advantage to have teeth better suited for carnivorous pursuits. Most ghouls smell like rotting meat. Why don't you? Diet and cleanliness. Most ghouls eat rotting flesh and do not bathe. I eat fresh meat and bathe regularly. Are you immortal? I have no idea. I do not believe there have been any organized studies of ghoul longevity. Most strains of the human metahuman vampiric virus impart a semblance of extended life, but I do not believe the Krieger strain is one. Somehow, I think it's more likely I will die in combat than of old age, no matter how long I live. Might be interesting to ask a doctor. To what end? I live by the sword and I will die by it. I have no illusions about my chances of growing old. Gachu shakes his head in dismissal. How would I live out my days? In a rural country, eating people who happen to expire on nearby roads? That will not be my fate. Why don't you stink? I shower. Oh, yeah, that makes sense, I guess. So you eat people. What's that like? Gachu blinks a few times and cocks his head as if to stare at the ceiling. What's it like to eat anything else, or for a diabetic to take insulin? It's like that, a fact of life. I have found that most people are revolted by the concept of eating the flesh of humans rather than the act itself. Taken in isolation of social concerns, humans are no more or less edible than most mammals. The flesh can be of poor or high quality, depending on all the factors you'd expect. Diet, lifestyle, etc. I prefer to prepare my meals as I would sashimi, a light garnish and flavoring, but with an emphasis on the taste of the base meat. Do I enjoy it? No, not especially. Some Japanese are fond of pork and chicken sashimi, but I've never been one of them. But it is a fact I must accept, and if it is how things will be, I will make the best of it. Do you feel bad about, having to be a cannibal? No, but I was never a vegetarian, so why should I? Gachu seems puzzled by the question, as if he's missing the nuances of meaning. It doesn't matter where the meat comes from. So, someone who died in a car accident is as viable as someone I kill. I admit I've eaten people I've killed, but that was of necessity, and I was going to kill them anyway. Why let their bodies go to waste? Let's talk about something else. We were talking about how your dad bailed you out of jail. Ah, yes, I do recall you asking about that. Gachu's reticence is palpable in the long silence that follows. He does not continue. You said if I came back later you'd tell me what happened. I've given you my word. I intend to keep it. Do not be concerned. I simply have not spoken to my family in a long time. Are you close? Not any longer. I have not seen my father for many years now, nor my sister or mother. I wish I could say that I missed them, but I feel I hardly know them after so many years apart. Yasujiro gave me an ultimatum after my run-in with Shiawase security. He told me he'd cut a backroom deal with a rival in Shiawase to keep me out of prison. The charges would be suspended, and if I finished high school and studied at Kyoto custody with the intent of joining Ranneko. If I did not, Shiawase would take me into custody and I would spend time in prison. I'm surprised what did that cost him? I have no idea. He refused to reveal what he'd been forced to do in exchange, but I cannot imagine it was cheap. Insider information, perhaps? A deliberately botched contract? Yasujiro was a manager in the Water and Power Division, so the deal would have been lucrative, but not secret. I'd always taken my family for granted, raised in a Ranneko family, going to Ranneko schools. I always had a sense of place, of belonging where I was. The thought of all that vanishing, I simply could not imagine it. Suddenly the reality of my actions became clear. From then on, I tried to be the son he wanted, and he seemed glad of it. We grew much closer over the next few years. He took time off to visit me when I was living in Kyoto. Why'd that be unusual? He was a very busy man in those days, a lot of responsibility and very little time for himself. I was impressed that he could carve up as much time as he did just to go camping with his son. A lot of nice wilderness in that part of Japan, I bet. Very much so. The land around Kyoto is protected from development due to historical and cultural significance. Most of the mountains are considered sacred, so the Diet declared them a national preserve. We made several trips to the area between Kyoto and Nara around the village of Ide. We camped in the mountains above it. We would hunt wild deer and boar there, using my family's antique arquebus. That's a strange choice of weapon. It is a choice of expediency. It's nearly impossible for a private citizen to own a firearm in Japan, which is why you may so often read of Yakuza attacks involving swords and cleavers. And as the Tanegashima that my family owns is from the 18th century, it's exempt from ordinary regulations. Perhaps ironically, hunting with my father is how I learned to prepare raw meat. Strange to think of such activities serving as training for my current state of affairs. So, what's the process? How do you prepare it? Soak the meat in brined water and simmer it at low heat for several hours. Let it cool and repeat the process over several days. It cannot get too hot or I am unable to eat it. This process brings out the collagen in the meat. Then, when it is done, I spice it with ginger and sansho pepper. Again, not too much. Mundane food is anathema to me. Sighing happily, Gaichu stares off into the distance. When he looks back, he smiles broadly. Those were good days. I'm sorry I cannot go back to those times. When one joins the Red Samurai, one must give up all attachments of one's previous life. The company, the code, and the unit become the entirety of your world. Even your family ties have to be cut. Especially those. Anything that could distract you from a mission must be purged. Commitment to the unit and the company must be total. Applicants must be human, Japanese, and utterly devoted to Ranneko. Your unit becomes your family. Your commander is your father and mother. Your teammates, your siblings. Red Samurai are not allowed to reveal our identities and position to anyone outside the Special Operations Group. Even if we wanted friends outside the unit, we could not have them. So, how'd you end up joining? A fair question, given my youthful indiscretions. Are you familiar with the Kempeitai? Aren't they the Japanese political police? Yes, much like the commissars of the Soviet Union, they are responsible for enforcing political and social orthodoxy. Not only concerned with the army, the Kempeitai also enforce certain laws with regard to the general populace. It's my understanding they're a Gestapo. That's not entirely accurate, but it's more correct than not. It is an organization with little oversight, broad powers, and a simple recruitment method. As such, power tends to get the better of most members. When I was enrolled at Kyoto University, I studied global security and political science. It is the major generally used as a gateway to private security postings, both governmental and corporate militaries. I knew I wanted to fight. I was a young man and my blood was always up. One of the requirements was that students join the Youth Brigade Kempeitai. The Youth Brigade is a little like the ROTC in North America, the Young Falcons in the Sioux Nation, or the District Officer Program in the Republic of Korea. Members learn to be soldiers without actually joining the army. They perform community service and promote civic pride. Performance and prestige in the Kempeitai is used to dictate later job opportunities, a bit like a good internship. So you have to be a good fascist to get a good job. That is an indelicate way of putting it, but yes, I believe the purpose of the Youth Brigade is to teach students to glorify the state over the self. We did as we were taught. Such is the way of authority on the young. Did you regret getting involved with them? No. Why? It was a necessary step in my plans for my future. Even if some of the behaviors we were involved in were distasteful, the state of the nation was such that those kinds of behaviors were legal and condoned. Are you saying the end justifies the means? No, I'm saying that it's very difficult for outsiders to judge a society's peculiarities objectively, unless they know what it's like to live in that society. History can condemn or exonerate me, but all I need to know for certain is that I did what was required of me. When I was nearing graduation, I was approached by a recruiter with Ranneko Security. She told me I come from a good family and I could have a promising career with the company. She offered to fast-track my application towards a potential Red Samurai position. 3 years with the Ranneko military as a junior officer, and guaranteed placement in a Red Samurai training billet of my choosing. The pay was good, the excitement of being an elite was an attractive prospect. I accepted, but I did not understand what I was signing up for. As I told you before, they forced you to give up everything except the company and the unit. And that was made clear to me, but I did not truly understand it. Did you regret it? On the whole, no. I do not know who I would have been had I not joined. Perhaps there are things I miss, but regret is perpetual. One is always tempted to ask, what if? But that is a trap. This is who I became. The armor was my protection and my identity. The training was extremely difficult, but mentally and physically. I knew that I would be isolated from my old life. I did not anticipate the full extent of that isolation. All samurai recruits report to a facility called the Forge in Chiba. You are assigned a unit, you and 4 other recruits, and for the next 2 years, the Forge will be your home and your prison. It seems ridiculous in retrospect. We were all so young. None of us had any idea what we were doing, except trying to become the best soldiers in the world. And yet those strangers became my new family in the absence of the old. Tell me about them. That chapter of my life is over and done with. They're no longer part of my world. Why would you care about any of that? Well, I mean, if they're still hunting for you, I need to know about them. Very well, that is a fair point. When I was younger, I would have more readily cut off my fingers and tell you what you ask. You must understand that secrecy is absolute among the Red Samurai. Your identity becomes secret, erased from any database that might connect you to the Red Samurai. You use only your code name when in the field, and your given name is known only to your commanders and your units. Even other Red Samurai units have no idea who you really are. Contact with the outside world is cut off completely. Even once training is over, your communications are restricted. Maintaining relationships outside of those you work with is frowned upon. That sounds pretty isolating. By design it forces recruits to bond with their unit and transfer every emotion they have for their old friends and family to the unit they must work with. If there is a tighter bond amongst any special forces, I would be surprised. Red Samurai units are always 5 members, one of whom is a spellcaster. During training, each member takes a turn at being commander. The most competent is given the billet permanently upon graduation. Why don't they assign a more seasoned commander? The way I have heard it, they worry that it would lead to the commander thinking of the unit as an asset to be used, rather than a family to protect. They would see themselves as above the team. I have no idea if it's true or not, but that is what I have heard. Ishida was our commander. He came from a rich family in Saitama, the kind of family where he was given every advantage possible, with the expectations he would keep the family name prestigious. He was older than the rest of us. He'd already spent 6 years in the army, a very severe man, rarely given to humor. Takagawa was usually the second in command. As our designated marksman, he tended to have a better tactical view of how an operation should run, simply because he needed to study the terrain more. He loved to get us laughing. Without him, I think I would have gone crazy after the first few months. Our major's name was Sasaki. She had been in training as a Miko, an apprentice priestess, when her magic began to manifest. She was in the unit for the challenge and for the money. Her family had always been poor, and they'd always told her she would never amount to anything. I think she joined the Red Samurai just to prove them she could do anything she wanted. My kind of attitude, I admit. I am unsurprised to hear it. You and Sasaki share similar attitudes. Neither of you stops to consider if your goals are attainable. You simply know that they are. Our heavy gunner's name is Aomori. He kept the team honest with itself. He never had a disparaging word for anyone and would not hesitate to call someone out for their behavior. Sasaki loved that about him. Really, she loved all of him. The two were discreet, but discretion only goes so far in a small team. Still, we respected their privacy where possible. Is that kind of thing allowed? If the unit commander allows it, yes. We're allowed incredibly widely away in what to allow or forbid our unit. The belief that the results were the only thing that mattered. If the unit failed, it would fail as a whole. Sasaki and Aomori were crazy about each other and would have done more harm to keep them apart. Lastly, there was me. I was a close quarters and breaching expert, the first man in the door when we had to clear a room. I was the perfectionist on the team. Aomori could get us to do anything, but I was the one who made certain we did it well, with style. How do you mean? If a thing is worth doing, it's worth doing well. If that thing is also your duty, it's worth doing perfectly. Many times we'll perform a drill or exercise well enough, but that was not good enough if I had to trust my life to it. That was why we became one of the best teams in the organization's history. That's a thing to be proud of. Of course it is. Do you think I do not know that? I apologize. It's just those feelings are still raw sometimes. Even if I were to be cured, I could never go back. They've been disgraced and I've done unforgivable things. I've been cast out for good. What do you mean? When they ambushed me in Fukuoka, it was a fight. It was fight or die. I killed 2 of them before I escaped. I will not be returning to the unit, no matter what. It is not an easy memory to grapple with. That's okay, Gaichu. Take your time. Thank you, Ranneko. I cannot talk about it now, but I need to process the emotions. They are still raw. I am tired. Come back later and we can talk more. Okay, cool. So that is our companion conversations for now down. So the next step is leveling people up. So, Steel Spirit, interesting. So that this allows us to grab a enemy spirit if they've been summoned, or we can just straight out murder a spirit with our rat token invocation. I think I'm gonna go with Steal a Spirit on that one. Sounds good. Okay, now. Shotgun mount or rotary saw? Let's see. Let's go with the rotary saw. We're gonna mostly use Crochet as a close combat drone, I think. Although that would have been a good choice if we're gonna do that. Whatever. Okay, got you. Do we give him a ranged attack? Or in fact, what kind of ranged attack do we give him? Do we want him to be able to spit at people or throw shuriken? Let's go with the monster route with Gaichu. Let's have him embrace his ghoulish nature. Duncan. Mercy kill or subdue? I'm going to go with subdue. I just like the ability to completely knock an enemy out of the fight. Plus, you know, he's arresting people. That's kind of funny. And Isabel. Do we want to make her mark targets and effectively reduce armor, or make her more accurate? I'm gonna go with the marking targets thing. Yeah, definitely the ability to strip armor seems good. And now that's it. That's everyone. Confirm all. Okay, so we're gonna grab a mission, and then next time we will do the chatting in the street. Okay, so check our inbox for messages. Job offer from Isabel. Recording of Isabel pops onto the screen. She stares into the camera, her eyes full of intensity. If you're watching this, you've decided to listen to my job offer. That's a good thing. I wasn't convinced you would. Our target is a local decker, a former Wampoan. In the Matrix, his name is Rhombus. He has the software we need. Unfortunately, he's unassailable from the Matrix, and no one knows where he lives in meat space, but I know where he's going to be. There's an event coming up that Rhombus can't afford to miss. He might already be on his way there. As you're reading this message, deckers from all over Asia, white hat and black hat alike, are converging on the Harbour Spires Hotel. This year's Harbour Spires is hosting DeckCon, Hong Kong's largest annual decking convention. Rhombus is going to be there, and that gives us an opportunity. We're going to hit the convention, find him in meat space, and get the software away from him. And we're going to do it quietly. Enclosed, you'll find a copy of the plan I've worked out for the run, presented in bullet point format. Everything should be fairly straightforward. Isabel's image blinks off the screen, replaced by a cursor. As you watch, the screen begins to fill with lines of simple instructions. I will provide you and one other runner of your choice with a visitor pass for the convention. I will proceed ahead of you using my own guest pass. I will hide in the women's lavatory on the first floor. You will enter via the kitchen and procure me a uniform for the catering staff. Please be sure the uniform is size 4. We will rendezvous. I will change into the uniform, and using it I will infiltrate the administrative wing on the 6th floor. You will proceed into the convention hall and await further instructions. Using the admin computer, I will identify Rhombus via his guest registration. Once I've done this, I will alert you via comlink. I will upgrade your badge to VIP status, granting you access to the VIP wing of the hotel. You will tell Rhombus that he's been granted VIP status and offer to escort him to a complimentary hotel room. You will escort him to a room I designate and hold him there. I will jack out of the Matrix and make my way from the admin wing to your room. We will intimidate Rhombus, beat the tar out of him until he gives us the software. We'll tie and gag Rhombus and stuff him into a storage closet. We will not be gentle. It's okay if he starts crying. Actually, please prioritize this. I want to see tears. Software in tow will make our escape. Okay, see? It's a simple plan. Like I said, we should be able to get through it without firing a shot. So will you do it? Will you help me get the software I need? Sure, let's do it. Excellent. I knew I could count on you. Saddle up, Ranneko. This is going to be fun. Okay, that sounds great. So we will chat with the vendors, try and progress stuff on that, and then we'll go to DeckCon 2056 next time. Until then, have a great day.